And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Doc Sloan's Science Fiction Station. We're just on a wee bit early, just before 10 o'clock as usual, just to check everything's working and that we have a green for the sound machine and our picture's okay. We've got a very, very fuzzy, grey, wet, miserable day here today. Very muggy, high humidity, about 70%, I think. I've got wee thermometers about the house here at the minute. What have we got in here? 65% humidity, 23 degrees in here. So it's a bit of a clammy day, not quite as bad as we've had it the rest of the week. But once we hit 10 o'clock, folks, as always, we'll get started. And apologies for not being able to make it the other week, as I totally wrecked my back. Partly to do with this new chair, which I have picked up. And from sitting in it and watching a TV program all night long without the lumbar support. Oh, I've got to trying to get used to this chair a little bit, actually. So it tends to slide about a bit on its own. There we go. But yes, indeed, tonight we're going to be having a wee look at chapters 46 and 47. And we really are pushing towards the back of the book. So if anybody's out there in the meantime, do say hello while I just get organised here and get things out the road. And there we go. Let's get our notes ready. Get that out the road and get our copy of the book open. One of the things I'm hoping, well, there's 10 o'clock, folks, actually, so I'll just say hello, everybody. I'm Doc Sloan. Thank you very much for joining me, and welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight we're on our Children of Dune book club, chapters 46 and 47. Two nice little short chapters, again, which are going to be followed by a couple of little short chapters. And we're starting to really push towards the end of the book. Tonight, chapter 46, on my copy, which is this one here, which is the Golan's. We're starting on page 309. So in that sense, the book is concluding just after 409. So we're just over about 100 pages to go. So we're getting a whole bunch of these nice little short chapters that are going to run together, accelerate the action, build the tension, and take us to the final conclusion of the story, which is an interesting one. There's Bab saying, "Evening, Doc. Can't stay long, but thought I'd stop in." Hello, Babs. Lovely to see you, and thanks very much for popping in. I hope you're keeping well. Yeah, as I said, apologies for last week, folks. I'm trying to keep regular. Just stupid on me. I was just sitting. I got myself far too comfortable. I was box setting something basically, and absolutely wrecked my back, my whole core, if you like. So both the bottom, middle, and top of my back. And I've spent most of the week lying down and on painkillers and anti-inflammatories. So apologies, but it's my own stupid fault as usual. There's Bojack saying, "Hey everyone, hey Bojack, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us as always." I'll just send you a wee message there in relation to the wee notes. So I'm a wee bit behind at the minute because of the back, but we're catching up with that stuff. So thank you very much and keep it coming, basically, is what I was saying. I hope you're keeping well. Yes, indeed. And I've still got a touch of the cold, I think. I'm still a wee bit nasal, folks. So not as bad as I think it was the last time, anyway. But there we go. So we'll get cracking with our epigraph, I suppose. A nice short one this time. And there's Sean saying, Sean Wyland saying, "Good evening, Doc. Hope you're feeling well." Yeah, back's a lot better, folks. But yeah, lots of deep heat and ibuprofen and that kind of stuff and bed rest, basically. But I could not stand and I could not sit for the better part of the week. And there's Carlos Cosaya saying, "Hey Doc, guys, welcome back." Hiya, Carlos, how you doing? And thank you everybody very much for your messages and stuff, by the way. I'm getting at the point where I'm a little bit like Leto the second. I'm getting ready to pile down my golden path in the hope of confronting my own personal Kralazek, my own personal typhoon struggle, which is dealing with all of my correspondence. Which is just gets me buried and is added to continually every week. So there's something, I don't know, very Greek about it. But I'm hoping to pick a day aside because I'm wanting to get on with a few things this year. And I kind of want to deal with the correspondence. So, but as always, I always get wee messages from people like yourself, Carl, saying, "I hope you're feeling better" and stuff. And thank you very much. Whenever I'm in the downtime, I tend not to go near the computer because I'm trying to kind of save myself, and you can see that my left hand's in a bit of a bad shape for typing and stuff like that. So, but we're a bit of a mess, but we're all good. You've got to laugh about it, but thank you. It's good to see you all. So here's our, I don't know, I think we'll go quickly enough possibly with chapter 46, maybe not so much with chapter 47, where we're dealing with Leto's escape, and the approach of another storm. Here we have Alia's quarters in Alia's keep, basically, with the arrival of Duncan, Idaho, back upon the scene in Arrakis, having to meet up with his wife, who is, of course, under the control of the Baron. Here's our epigraph, anyway, just to get cracking, folks. And as always, any comments or questions or anything that you have noticed, or keep a wee eye on the text as well, and keep a wee eye on me. Unfortunately, my sleep is for rubbish lately, and I tend to occasionally make a few wee mistakes myself, But as I said, you are all very good at keeping an eye on me. I'm much appreciated, Getting close to the clearing at the end of the path, I can relate. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I get the sense of impetus with the book itself, if you see what I mean. For me, that it feels like the work's picking up a little bit. There seems to be more of it, but it's smaller bits. It's moving faster. And yeah, it's there's some good pacing here from Frank. I think it's one of my favorite things about a good writing is its pacing. I would talk about Ian Banks being an absolute master of it, but Frank's pretty good at it and knows when to sort of shove the tension. He's very good at building the tension up and then either unleashing it or kind of occasionally letting it fall by the side, make you wonder, So here we are. Peace demands solutions, but we never reach living solutions. We only work toward them. A fixed solution is by definition a dead solution. The trouble with peace is that it tends to punish mistakes instead of rewarding brilliance. The words of my father, an account of Muad'Dib, reconstructed by Hark al-Ada. So the words of my father, an account of Muad'Dib, reconstructed by Hark al-Ada, would suggest that the conversation my father would be from either Ganima's point of view or Leto II's point of view. Pardon me, them being the children of Muad'Dib. But it's not made clear to us. And it's a bit of a, I don't know, I don't know what you think about this epigraph. Peace demands solutions. Fair enough, okay, but we never reach living solutions. I'm not too sure what we mean by that here. We only, and never there is an absolute, we only work toward them. So we work toward living solutions, but we never reach them, I suppose is what we're being. A fixed solution is by definition a dead solution. I don't agree with that. I'm pretty sure, a fixed solution is by definition a dead solution. I think we're being linguistically funny here, if you know what I mean, but we're, as in trying to be clever, but it doesn't make sense to me. The trouble with peace is that it tends to punish mistakes instead of rewarding brilliance. That's quite possible if we're talking about kind of, peace terms and treaties and that kind of thing. And I suppose it's a strange thing to say about rewarding brilliance, I suppose, as a result of war. Peace demands solutions. Was I suppose peace being the opposite of war. I'm kind of wondering, technically, is it? But was it to say, he who wants peace, let him prepare for war? I don't know. It's a strange kind of statement that I'm kind of struggling with a little bit. Peace demands solutions, yeah, okay, a peace plan, but we never reach living solutions. We only work towards them. But surely, ultimately, the peace itself is a solution. A fixed solution is by definition a dead solution. I don't agree with that. There are plenty of what I would call fixed, if you want, immutable solutions, ways of doing something that are just fine because they work. And it brings to mind the old adage, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, this kind of thing. But there are lots of things, for example, I don't know, if I was building a website I've got a few wee tricks up my sleeve and stuff like that, some groovy JavaScript and things that do all sorts of nice little things for the user, and and I basically have a fixed way of doing that. That I'm that used to doing it. I've got a way of doing it, and it's a good way of doing it, and it's a viable solution for what I want. And in terms of not reusing code or anything like that, it's perfectly legit. If you see what I mean, a fixed solution, I suppose, in terms of things change over time. The idea that maybe one kind of piece might not work for one generation and the next, perhaps, I don't know. But I've been having a wee bit of a think about it, but it's I'm not too sure really what Frank's trying to point out here. The trouble with peace is it punishes mistakes instead of rewarding brilliance. War does that too, doesn't it? Surely. Um, Anyway. Cynthia saying, hi Doc, hi all Doc, glad you're feeling better. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Thanks very much for joining us. Flaccid House says, good evening, Doc, and chat. Hello, Flaccid House, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's got anything to chime in with that little epigraph. But I think, I suppose in relation to the chapter, we can go and have a wee look at it. I think there's a suggestion of what's been going on within the Fremen politic, if you like, here. Right, okay, so let's have a wee look. Okay, off we go. Let's just start. She's training him. She's training for Aden. Alia glared at Duncan, Idaho, with a deliberate mix of anger and incredulity. The Guild Highliner had swung into orbit around Arrakis at noon local. An hour later, the lighter had put Idaho down at Arrakis, unannounced, but all casual and open. With minutes, a thopter had deposited him atop the keep. Warned of his impending arrival, Alia had greeted him there, coldly formal before her guards. But now they stood in her quarters beneath the North Rim. He had just delivered his report, truthfully, precisely, emphasizing each datum in Mentat fashion. She has taken leave of her senses, Alia said. He treated the statement as a Mentat problem. All the indicators are that she remains well balanced, sane. I should say her sanity index was. Stop that, Alia snapped. What can she be thinking of? I like this little bit of back and forth. Now, the one thing I should say before we get cracking with this really is that almost all of this is, again, we have chapters like this. Almost all of this is theatre, if you like, between these two, as we'll see. So the coldly formal meeting, we're in our quarters now. And she's being quite angry here, isn't she? He's giving her a very formal, kind of unemotional response. She's being very emotional. So Idaho, who knew that his own emotional balance depended now upon retreat into mental coldness, said, I compute she is thinking of her granddaughter's betrothal. His features remained carefully bland, a mask for the raging grief which threatened to engulf him. There was no Alia here. Alia was dead. For a time he'd maintained a myth Alia before his senses, someone he'd manufactured out of his own needs. But a Mentat could carry on such self-deception for only a limited time. This creature in human guise was possessed. A demon psyche. I'll read that again. A demon psyche drove her. His steely eyes, with their myriad facets available at will, reproduced upon his vision centers of multiplicity of myth Alias. But when he combined them into a single image, no Alia remained. Her features moved to other demands. She was a shell within which outrages had been committed. What have I got here? I think I have a bit of a problem with the text here. Let me just check that. Hang on. Number 6. His steely eyes from there. Let me just see. His steely eyes. This is the paragraph that begins. Idaho, who knew that his own emotional balance. So it's a fair bit down it. His steely eyes, with their myriad facets, available at will, reproduced upon his vision centers of multiplicity of myth alias. I think that first of should be a. Their myriad facets available at will, reproduced upon his vision centers a multiplicity of myth alias. I've got of multiplicity of myth alias, which doesn't make any sense. Oh, here, hang on. My text has retreat into mentat coldness. I heard you said mental coldness. Oh, I've written mental coldness. I have indeed. Let me just check. That's my mistake. There you go. One straight up the bat. Cynthia, thank you very much. Haven't crossed my T's. Sorry, I'm not. I'm usually very good at crossing my T's and I actually circle my I's. So there you go. I've just noticed that. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Where are we? Idaho, who knew that his own emotional balance depended now upon retreat into mentat coldness, said, I compute she is thinking of her granddaughter's betrothal. His features remained carefully bland, a mask for the raging grief which threatened to engulf him. Where are you? Engulf him. There we go. There was no Alia here. Alia was dead. That's very punchy, isn't it? It's the effect of those two very short sentences there. There was no Alia here. Alia was dead. Very powerful. If I was Frank, I would have dropped them on another line. I would have brought them out of that paragraph to make it even more impactful, I suppose. More impactful. To give it more impact. Give it more power, I suppose. Sorry, just running through this paragraph again because of a couple of wee mistakes there. There was no Alia here. Alia was dead. For a time, he'd maintained a myth Alia before his senses, someone he'd manufactured out of his own needs, but a mentat could carry on such self-deception for only a limited time. This creature in human guise was possessed. A demon psyche drove her. His steely eyes, with their myriad facets available at will, reproduced upon his vision centers. I think this is a multiplicity of myth alias, but when he combined them into a single image, no alia remained. Her features moved to other demands. She was a shell within which outrages had been committed. A shell, just something hollow. She's gone. She's dead, is what we're getting there. Very, very tragic. And you can feel for Idaho here, can't you? You know, we're getting that sense of his grief here, but it's quite a bleak picture that we've, you know, there's no rescuing here. It's her, it seems, here from the bar. Bojack says, I have a, yes, my text has a multiplicity of myth alias. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've got of multiplicity of, but it is a. Let me just make sure. So there's a, yeah, I've got it is a. You're the mistake. Okay. A multiplicity of myth alias. Yes, indeed. Interesting language here as well. We have this myth alia, something that seems that, you know, a version of her that he's constructed in his own mind, I suppose, a defense mechanism, if you want, a form of self-deception. We're told that a mentat can only really do for X amount of time. It's not something they can really put themselves through. This creature in human guise was possessed. A demon psyche drove her. I quite like that. If we break that word up, it means spirit butterfly or spirit soul, doesn't it? Demon psyche drove her. So there we go. Where's Ganima? He asked. She waved the question aside. I've sent her with Ireland to stay in Stilgar's keeping. And we get Idaho's thoughts here. So, neutral territory, he thought. There's been another negotiation with rebellious tribes. She's losing ground and doesn't know it. Or does she? Is there another reason? Has Stilgar gone over to her? The betrothal, Alia mused. What are conditions in the house? What are conditions in the Carino house? I thought that sentence seemed a little bare there, to be honest with you. What are conditions in the Carino house? It felt like it needed a bit more padding, but that's all I've got there. What are conditions in the Carino house? So Salusa swarms with Utrine relatives, all working upon Farad'n, hoping for a share in his return to power. In terms of, just by the way, the epigraph, I think peace demands solutions, etc., is probably referring to what our treaties are going on here. Another negotiation with rebellious tribes. She's losing ground and doesn't know it. So, Salusa swarms with Utrine relatives, all working upon Farad'n, hoping for a share in his return to power. And she's training him in the Bene Gesserit. Is it not fitting for Ganima's husband? Alia smiled to herself, thinking of Ganima's adamant rage. Let Farad'n be trained. Jessica was training a corpse. It would all work out. I must consider this at length, she said. You're very quiet, Duncan. I await your questions. I see. You know, I was very angry with you, taking her to Farad'n. You commanded me to make it real. I was forced to put out the report that you'd both be taken captive, she said. I obeyed your orders. You're so literal at times, Duncan. You almost frightened me. But if you hadn't, well, we've got what there? An unspoken threat. The Lady Jessica's out of harm's way, he said. And for Ganima's sake, we should be grateful that, she cuts him off here, exceedingly grateful, she agreed. And she thought, he's no longer trustworthy. He has that damnable Atreides loyalty. I must make an excuse to send him away and have him eliminated. An accident, of course. She touched his cheek. Now, I've just scribbled next to that. That's the Baron, I think. But we have to put down here that Alia wants her husband dead, and that this is. Can we run with it? Do we think that this is not Alia at all? In the thoughts that we get here, this is the Baron, but perhaps that the touch of the cheek is that Alia, or is that just more theatre? Idaho forced himself to respond to the caress, taking her hand and kissing it. Again, we've got acting now. He knows that Alia is gone. So again, theatre from both of them here, really. But is perhaps the taking of the hand, is that theatre? Or sorry, the touching of the cheek, or is that a little bit of Alia kind of, part of me thinks, and again, I can't remember it, so it's been a long time since I've read this, but, that there's a part of her still in there. I'm not sure if there is or not, but certainly Duncan doesn't seem to think so. Pardon me. So he forced himself to respond to the caress, taking her hand and kissing it. So he's acting knowing that Alia is gone. Duncan, how sad it is, she said. But I cannot keep you here with me. Too much is happening, and I have so few I can completely trust. Now, I've written next this. If she was okay, up here, if she was Alia, this wouldn't make any sense at all. If there are so few people around her that she could trust, it would make sense for her to keep Duncan Idaho, of all people, very close to her. He released her hand and waited, and we get some interesting things here now. This is Alia. I was forced to send Ganima to Tabar, she said. Things are in deep unrest here. Raiders from the Broken Lands breached the Quanets at Kaga Basin and spilled all of their waters into the sands. Arrakis was on short rations. The basin's alive with sand trout yet, reaping the water harvest. They're being dealt with, of course, but we're spread very thin. And we get just Idaho here. He'd already noted how few Amazons of Alia's guard were to be seen in the keep, and he thought, the Maquis of the inner desert will keep on probing her defenses. Doesn't she know that? And I've written next to that, does she, yes or no? And I've written next to that, does the Baron Shade know that? Now, just backing up a wee bit, what we're told is we've got deep unrest. Raiders from the Broken Lands have breached the Quanets at Kaga Base and spilled all of the waters into the sands. Arrakis on short rations, we take that to mean water, which would suggest things are quite bad here. The basin's alive with sand trout yet, reaping the water harvest. They're being dealt with, of course, but we're spreading very thin. So the sand trout would insist on absorb all water, wouldn't they? But the suggestion is that they'll be murdered here, they'll be killed in the basin. So what we've got essentially here is, as much as that there are raiders, there's unrest. This is, for want of a better word, ecological terrorism, if you like. It's an ecological attack against the ecological work of what's going on Arrakis, possibly informed by the words of the preacher. Raiders from the Broken Lands breached the Quanets at Krakow, spilled all the waters into the sands. So we have unrest, we have sabotage, and what it seems is an attempt to start to reverse, certainly by these raiders, that's what this looks like, the ecological transformation of Arrakis. And that they keep probing her defenses, doesn't she know that? So, again, peace demands solutions. Peace is that tends to punish mistakes instead of rewarding brilliance. And I think if we have the Baron's personality here intact within Alia, wishing to destroy the Atreides, then they want that personality would want all-out war, would want them to be tearing each other apart, I think. Send him away. Carlos says, send him away. Pure Harkonnen, perhaps part of the genetic lineage that the Bene Gesserit bred for. Yeah, I think we have pretty much the Baron dominant here, don't we? Though, of course, Alia is a Harkonnen, if you like. They're all Harkonnens. Alia, Paul, and Leto II. Yeah. Part of the genetic lineage. That's a good point, Carlos. Yes, indeed. There's got to be something. There's a real level of arrogance, I think, about them in some ways. It's funny. It's something that Paul says himself, actually, way back to the Reverend Mother. Is it you take a lot upon yourself? I think is the quote. Something very similar to that. So this is Alia here. Tamara is still neutral territory, she said. Negotiations are continuing there right now. Jabin's there with a delegation from the priesthood, but I'd like you at Tamar to watch them, especially Irulan. She is Carino, he agreed. Now I've got a wee mistake here, I think. Let me just check the book. What I've got here is, but she saw in her eyes that she was rejecting him. Now that's, but he saw in her eyes that she was rejecting him. It's got to be. Out of that, she's looking at herself in a mirror, I think. Is the only way that would make sense. But if somebody could just check that one for me. Just below she is Carino, he agreed. I have she saw in her eyes that she was rejecting him. And I think it's but he saw in her eyes that she was rejecting him. How transparent this Alia creature had become. Yeah, it's Cynthia, thank you, and Bojack. Yeah, it's got to be a he, doesn't it? Oh dear, oh dear. Do you know something? As much as I've got, it's interesting with the different texts, the problems within them. But my choice of text, each time I've done this, is based on size of print. Would you believe? Not. It's not been. I'll go with this particular one. I'm gonna have to choose my God Emperor Jim very carefully. Hmm. Yeah. Again, Alia creature, the myth Alia, etc. Um, how transparent this Alia creature has become. So the information that we can get from that is at Tabar we have Ganama, Irulan, Stilgar, and Javid. All of those people are at Siege Tabar at this point. So she is Crane O'Hagood. Again, this is the theatre, but he saw in her eyes that she was rejecting him. How transparent this Alia creature had become. She waved a hand. Go now, Duncan, before I soften and keep you here beside me. I've missed you so. And I've missed you, he said, allowing all of his grief to flow into his voice. I should have read that differently, shouldn't I? And I've missed you. Oh, sorry, I'm no actor. And I've missed you, he said. That was a bit better. Allowing all of his grief to flow into his voice. She stared at him, startled by the sadness. Then, for my sake, Duncan, and she thought, too bad, Duncan. She said, Zia, Zia will take you to Damar. We need the Thopter back here. And we have Idaho's thoughts here. Her pet Amazon, he thought, I must be careful of that one. Zia, alias Pet Amazon, is a name that in Arabic and Hebrew has a number of meanings: light, radiance, splendor, to shine, radiant, etc., etc. Pardon me. So we're getting the thoughts and again the reality, I suppose, in this. Though what's really being said, what's understood by both characters, how much one understands of the other, I suppose. And I think that at least again the Baron is generally ignorant, if you like. If we're going to talk about him as the Baron, the Shade Baron, if you like, the Baron number two, he's unaware that people have rumbled him, if that makes sense. It seems to be his main weakness within this, as much as but certain people, when they look at Arya, they can see the Baron there. He's not necessarily aware that he's been rumbled, if you see what I mean. I understand, he said, once more taking her hand and kissing it. He stared at the dear flesh which once had been Alia's. He could not bring himself to look at her face as he left. Someone else stared back at him from her eyes. As he mounted to the keep's roof pad, Idaho probed a growing sense of unanswered questions. The meeting with Alia had been extremely trying for the mentat part of him, which kept reading data signs. He waited beside the Thopter with one of the keep's Amazons, stared grimly southward. Imagination took his gaze beyond the shield wall to Siege Tabar. Let me get his thoughts here. Why does Zia take me to Tabar? Returning a Thopter is a menial task. What is the delay? Is Zia getting special instructions? I wrote, I didn't think that returning a Thopter would be a menial task. Is the equivalent of sending a helicopter. I would require a pilot, somebody trained. I wouldn't just get any John Doe to kind of do that kind of thing. But maybe in this world it is a menial task. Maybe for someone of higher station as Zia, perhaps. I get the sense that most of the main characters seem to enjoy flying around in Thopters. What's the delay? Is Zia getting special instructions? Is he being a wee bit paranoid? No, he's a mentat. And he's picking up signs, and it's most likely that, and we've seen it already within the thoughts, haven't we? If there was any kind of doubt for us as readers, but it's already, I must have you killed. Where did we get it there? Sorry. Too bad, Duncan. I must have an excuse to send him away and have him eliminated. An accident, of course. He's going to have an accident. Sorry, let me just get back to where we were. Goodness, it's warm in here. Idaho glanced at the watchful guard mounted to the pilot's position in the Thopter. He leaned out and said, said, "Tell Alia I'll send the Thopter back immediately with one of Stilgar's men." Before the guard could protest, he closed the door and started the Thopter. He could see her standing there indecisively. Who, who could question Alia's consort? He had the Thopter airborne before she could make up her mind what to do. Let me just check that there. Oh. Who could question Alia's consort? Yes, indeed. He had the Thopter airborne before she could make up her mind what to do. So this is him in flight and alone. Now alone in the Thopter, he allowed his grief to spend itself in great racking sobs. Poor Duncan. Alia was gone. Again, just short sentence, the finality of it. They had parted forever. Tears flowed from his Tleilaxu eyes, and he whispered, "Let all the waters of Dune flow into the sand. They will not match my tears." This was a non-mentat excess, though. Sorry, I'll read that again. This was a non-mentat excess, though, and he recognized it as such, forcing himself to sober assessment of present necessities. The Thopter demanded his attention. The reactions of flying brought him some relief, and he had himself once more in hand. Ganima was Stilgar again, and Irulan. Why had Zia been designated to accompany him? He made it a mentat problem, and the answer chilled him. I was to have a fatal accident. Yes, indeed. So Zia was possibly to try and kill him. I don't know. I get just the general gist of it, that it would be very, very difficult to kill Duncan, Idaho. And that sending Zia to do it might not accomplish the job, I wouldn't think, just in terms of how dangerous he's meant to be. And this is, of course, the hate gola, if you like. Duncan, Idaho plus, if you see what I mean. Let me see. My text has what he saw in her. Yeah, oh yes. Thank you guys. Back on. Interesting to compare the chapter where Idaho requests leave of Jessica, written mostly from her perspective. This leave taking is both more intimate and shows us the mentat conditioning and the man. Yes, indeed. And yeah, there was something familiar about it, wasn't there? That must be it. I was thinking, well done, Cynthia. It's the last time he's left her, I think. And we get the sense that this is the final time, isn't it? Did we get that sense of finality the last time? I'm not sure. I think that might be in a different notebook. Go back a wee bit further than I think. This one. But yeah, it's sad. And again, just Alia again has been one of our heroes in the Dune series. The Janus aspect of Paul himself, and a fascinating character. And it's weird actually when we have, as he puts it, it's a shell, isn't it? What we've got is a character that we're used to that's gone, in a sense. That it's a funny way to think of it. The outline, the mass of that character is walking about. The face of that character is walking about, but within that character is the Baron Harkonnen. All of Alia's agency, it seems, is gone, and her entire personality has been, at this point, entirely taken over, possibly obliterated. And again, it's not a nice way to go, is it? Really, this form of madness where you lose yourself, you lose your personality, but something else takes over. And we've got a very murderous creature within this shell that is once was Alia. So it's again it's compounding the tragedy of it all. I always think it's interesting to think of the tears coming out of Idaho's eyes, particularly the metallic eyes. It's interesting. But yes, indeed, the chapter where Idaho requests leave of Jessica, written mostly from her perspective. This leave taking is both more intimate and shows us the mentat conditioning of the man. Oh, sorry, I was thinking of something else, Cynthia. I don't miss that. You said Dave of Jessica. I was thinking about the last time he'd seen Alia. I think, but yes, indeed. Uh, More intimate than shows is the mental conditioning in the man. Yes, and we have a what's it called, a non-mentat excess here. His tears, as he's flying, and again, I think the words here quite it's the words are quite poetic here for Frank. It's a good little thing that he says here. Let all the waters of Dune flow into the sand. They will not match my tears. And it kind of lines up with the action of the rebels, isn't it? Doesn't it? What they have done is tipped all the waters of Dune into the sand. And we have this. Seems we have another murderous assistant of our Amazon of Alias, now the Barons. Now, chapter 47, folks, is where we jump to next, and it's another wee short one. Not super short. And we're back with Leto. We really are heading towards Leto's. Oh, well, I suppose we'll get there. All sorts of things. Transformation, metamorphosis, apotheosis, if you like. All sorts of things we could call it. Very, very shortly, we're going to do this because we're getting a wee bit more on top of things, providing I don't injure myself as again soon. We're hoping to do a couple. We're going to do an episode with the book club that's like a primer, if you like. But we're going to have a look at. We've talked about doing it, but we've been waiting for the right time. So we're going to look at Marie Noelle Zinder's WAPO of Leto Atreides. And we're going to have a wee bit of a chat about the tradition of ritual and myth from Lord Raglan's point of view. So we're going to do a wee bit of reading from both of those, and hopefully we're going to try and give you Marie Noelle Zinder's entire paper. We're going to try and read that for us. So it might, just in case it's the sort of thing that as Dune fans you might not have been able to get a copy of or hear. This kind of thing. So we're going to read you some of the key sort of stuff to do with ritual and myth, which Herbert uses within this book, and in particular, then we're also going to have a look at this idea of the second skin, the Muad'Dib, which is a concept from I'm going to go with Jungian psychology, particularly. Well, I don't know. Let me not talk through my backside here, folks. Let me just double check that. It's DDA Anzu. Isn't there he is? Let's see. Let's see. Psychoanalyst. I don't know, maybe Freudian for all I know. The skin ego, let's have a wee look. The influential concept of the psychic envelope. The skin ego, the WAPO. Being suggested for that. That's interesting, because as much as that paper is suggestive of it, the date that this is it 1985? So I suppose, yeah, we'll have to have a wee look at that. But I don't know whether he's a Freudian or Jungian. It just says French psychoanalyst. We'll go with that. Carlos says, to me, the tears from the metal eyes show the intricate attention to detail in the Talaxi work. Yeah, there's something interesting about the metal eyes crying, isn't there? It's almost like the idea of getting water from a stone. But yes, indeed, they're artificial eyes, and he has the ability to cry. So here we go. This is Leto on the move. With the rocky shrine to the skull of a ruler grants no prayers. It has become the grace of lamentations. Only the wind hears the voice of this place. The cries of night creatures and the passing wonder of two moons all say his day has ended. No more supplicants come. The visitors have gone from the feast. How bare the pathway down his mountain. And this is Lines at the Shrine of an Atreides Duke by Anonymous. Anon. Interesting little bit, I suppose. It reminds me a little bit on Ozymandias, that kind of thing. The skull of a ruler grants no prayers. The shrine. His day is ended. It's, I suppose, the legacy of Shrine of an Atreides Duke. I guess the really to think about it is I'm wondering whose skull this is, but I think it's Leto the First. But his time is gone, his power is gone. He can grant no prayers. Has become the grace of lamentations. Right. Only the wind hears the voice of this place, the cries of night creatures in passing, wonder of two moons. All say his day has ended. No more supplicants come. The visitors have gone from the feast. How bare the pathway down his mountain. It does remind me a little bit of those Ozymandias poems. Look upon my works, you mighty and despair, this kind of thing, and that's just nothing. Very deceptive poems, by the way. The thing had the deceptive appearance of simplicity to Leto. Avoiding the vision, do that which has not been seen. He knew the trap in his thought, how the casual threads of a locked future twisted themselves together until they held you fast, but he had a new grip on those threads. Nowhere had he seen himself running from Jacurutu. The thread to Sabiha must be cut first. He crouched now in the last daylight at the eastern edge of the rock which protected Jacurutu. His frame kit, so he managed to get one. We were Gurney and Namri were speculating on whether he had picked one up or not. He had. Pardon me. His frame kit had produced energy tablets and food. He waited now for strength. To the west lay Lake Azrak, the gypsum plain where once there had been open water in the days before the worm. Unseen to the east lay the Bene Shirk, a scattering of new settlements encroaching upon the open bled. To the south lay the Tanzaruft, the land of terror. 3,800 kilometers of wasteland, broken only by patches of grass-locked dunes and wind traps to water them, the work of the ecological transformation, remaking the landscape of Arrakis. They were serviced by airborne teams, and no one stayed for long. So again, we're continuing with this. From the previous chapter, we've had a little bit of a mention of the, I suppose, an act of ecological terrorism, ecological warfare, if you like, by raiders, and we're getting a little bit of the geography here, and I suppose east, west, south, etc. from Jacurutu, and we get these areas that have been part of the ecological transformation, remaking the landscape. They're managed by airborne teams. Their names, I suppose. I think we've had most of these before, by the way, folks. Lake Azrak being the Arabic word for blue, which is also a surname. Bene Shirk, Bene being good, is also well, proper, reasonably. Shirk is most likely, in this case, from Swiss-German name Shirk. Well, no, there's two actually here. I thought this was interesting. It's the second one, I think, is most definitely. Bene Shirk, I don't know which one you could go with here, to be honest with you, because it says it's the Bene Shirk, a scattering of new settlements encroaching upon the open bled. So, Bene possibly meaning good. Shirk is a Swiss-German name, SCHU umlaut RCH, which means easygoing nature or slow shuffling gait, which I thought was quite cool. But it also could probably come from the Shrek, which is from the Yiddish and German, which means fear or fright. We've had Tanzaruf before, as well as a region along the borders of Algeria and Mali, west of the Hagar Mountains. In Tuareg languages, it means land of thirst. It's in the Sahara Desert. So the Bene Shirk could either be the good fear or the good fright, or I thought more of a Fremen kind of thing, the good slow shuffling gait. I thought the good place to take it easy. I don't know, take your pick. Tanzaruf, tears the land of terror, is the land of thirst in the Tuareg languages. So there we go. I think we've had all. I'm not sure about Bene Shirk. I'm pretty sure that's a new one. But I believe we've had Lake Azrak and Tanzaruf before. So Leto's thoughts here. I will go south, he told himself. Gurney will expect me to do that. This was not the moment to do the completely unexpected. It would be dark soon, and he could leave this temporary hiding place. He stared at the southern skyline. There was a whistling of dun sky along that horizon, rolling there like smoke, a burning line of undulant dust, a storm. He watched the high center of the storm rising up out of the great flat like a questing worm. For a full minute he watched the center, saw that it did not move to the right or the left. The old Fremen saying leapt into his mind, when the center does not move, you are in its path. Sorry, I think I might have had a wee mistake there. Let's just have a wee look. From that he watched the center. Where are we? So, there we go. Hang on. Yeah, that's my mistake. It did not move. That's okay. I read it as it anyway. So, I had I written down there. Let's see. Oh, hang on. Turn that page, not this one. There we go. So, when the center does not move, you're in its path. That storm changed matters. For a moment he stared back westward, the direction of Tabar, feeling the deceptive grey-tan peace of the desert evening. Sorry, I'll read that again. For a moment he stared back westward, the direction of Tabar, feeling the deceptive grey-tan peace of the desert evening, seeing the white gypsum pan edged by the wind-rounding pebbles, the desolate emptiness with its unreal surface of glaring white reflecting dust clouds. Okay, nowhere in any vision had he seen himself surviving the grey serpent of a mother's storm, or buried too deeply in sand to survive. There was only that vision of rolling and wind, but that might come later. Sorry, just that previous, the start of that paragraph, that's a long, unwieldy sentence. It's almost I would do things like that sometimes. Forget that a human being needs to speak these things occasionally. I was having bother there. I needed to come up for air. Is that all one sentence? From a moment he stared back. Let me just check. Dust clouds. Yeah, we got a full stop there. Yeah. I could have done with another one halfway between the rest of it. Yeah. So nowhere in any vision had he seen himself surviving the grey serpent of a mother's storm. So we're getting this kind of I don't know, association with the worm and the storm here. It's a storm. It's a mother storm. One of my all-time favorite things in the Dune series is the storm before the big battle in Dune, the first novel. And it's the hyperbole of the storm amongst the Fremen as we build up to that moment, and it's the tension building. Of course, it's the moment where Paul knows that Leto, his child, is dead, and that unleash it, this kind of thing. But it's the nature of the storm. First of all, it's a storm is coming, then it's a mother of all storms. I think then very quickly it becomes a grandmother of all storms, and then it continues on up to a great grandmother of all storms, and I think it might even have got to a great great grandmother of all storms. And I just love that. That just as people, this kind of genealogical hyperbole in relation to the storm. I really enjoyed it. It made me laugh a bit as well. And it's interesting because it's right next to a very tragic and serious moment in the story. But we have a storm now, a grey serpent of a mother storm. And he hasn't seen this. His options: ride the worm, basically, or bury himself in the sand in a tent. Only vision of rolling in wind, but that might come later. And the storm was out there, winding across many degrees of latitude, whipping its world into submission. It could be risked. There were old stories, always heard from a friend of a friend, that one could lock an exhausted worm on the surface by propping a maker hook beneath one of its wide rings and, having immobilized it, ride out a storm in the leeward shadow. There was a line between audacity and abandoned recklessness which tempted him. That storm would not come before midnight at the earliest. So I'll read that again. That storm would not come before midnight at the earliest. There was time. How many threads could be cut here? All, including the final one. That's a question, including the final one. So it's kind of almost, I got from this that his problems, in a sense, the way he's thinking about cutting threads or cutting things that get rid of all sorts of problems if I pull the right one, is kind of like a cascade problem in a computer program, was the way I was thinking about it. You've got you can write a computer program and leave out a full stop somewhere in it, and it would cause 300 errors. Just errors all over the place. And if you start fixing them in the wrong order, if you see what I mean, you'll make a real mess of everything. The trick is to find that one place where the full stop should have been, and if you put it back in, all of those other 300 errors disappear. It seems to be a bit like that. And the final one. How many threads could be cut here? How many different futures, I think, different possibilities, all including the final one. We get Leto's thoughts here. Gurney will expect me to go south, but not into a storm. He stared down to the south, seeking a pathway, saw the fluid ebony brushstroke of a deep gorge curving through Jacurutu's rock. I think I've got a superfluous comma there. He stared down to the south, seeking a pathway, comma, saw the fluent ebony, comma, brushstroke of a deep gorge curving through Jacurutu's rock. I've got a comma after ebony there. I don't think it belongs. Just curious, I wonder if anybody else got that there. If I read it without the comma, it makes a bit more sense. It flows better. He stared down to the south, seeking a pathway, saw the fluent ebony brushstroke of a deep gorge curving through Jacurutu's rock. Flows a lot better without that comma there, I think. He saw sand curls in the bowels of the gorge, chimera sand. It uttered its haughty runnels onto the plain as though it were water. The gritty taste of thirst whispered in his mouth as he shouldered his frem kit and let himself down onto the path which led into the canyon. Pardon me. It was still light enough that he might be seen, but he knew he was gambling with time. Excuse me. There's Chaya said, Shalom, all. Shalom, Chaya. How you doing? I hope you're keeping safe. Lovely to see you, as always. Goodness, I need fluids. I have no comma My text has no comment. Yeah, it shouldn't be there at all. I've circled at the book. Superfluous punctuation. It still makes me wonder about all of this. It makes me wonder about the handout. The other thing it's kind of got me wondering about is because I'm copying these books is I suppose I'm not under a 9 to 5 or anything like that. I try to get it done when I can. Is obviously I'm sure you all know I've got a funny old sleep disorder, but occasionally affects my work. But it's made me think about the process of copying a book, if you see what I mean, and how reliable a copy is of the original if it's done by hand. Especially by sleepy scribes. Yeah. So Chimera, by the way, I'm sure we all know. If we don't, gives me an opportunity to talk about it. Haha. Chimera is a monster from Greek mythology. See, any old excuse. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. A monstrous fire-breathing hybrid creature from Lycia, Asia Minor, composed of different animal parts. Typically, it's depicted as a lion with a goat's head protruding from its back and a tail ending with a snake's head. Some representations also include dragon's wings. It's an offspring of Typhon and Echidna and a sibling of monsters like Cerberus and the Lernaean Hydra. The term chimera has come to describe any mythical or fictional creature with parts taken from various animals. Blah, blah, blah. No citations. Where we go? So yeah, the interesting thing about chimera is that it's attached to the Bellerophon myth. This is a monster slain by a Bellerophon. And if you check out Bellerophon, generally what you'll see is it's Bellerophon's associated with Pegasus. He rides Pegasus to attack and defeat the Chimera, which is an interesting thing because the Pegasus is one of the children of Medusa. Sort of pops out of her blood and neck. I feel like whenever her head's cut off, that's how she's born. Pegasus, what did I say? She, probably he. Yeah, Pegasus is a he. So there's a kind of interesting thing. The horses, I suppose, associate with two different heroes, Bellerophon and Perseus, if you like. But Bellerophon on Pegasus is the person who fights the Chimera. I don't know, he's an interesting, oddly enough. He's an odd little odd hero, I always thought. Bellos, projectile, dart, javelin, needle, arrow, Fontes, Slayer. Yes, indeed. Yeah, check out Bellerophon. So it's always the association I have it anyway with would be Bellerophon, Chimera, and Pegasus, if you see what I mean. I love the Chimera, Sam. Most of the characters in this part of the story are chimeras of some sort, exemplified nicely by the Hyraxia human. Tears, very good. Yes, indeed. I suppose Alia is in a funny way too, isn't she? There's more than one creature there. When I was a little kid and I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, I always pronounced it as a chimera. It wasn't until many years later I found out it was chimera. But I was quite like the chimera. So that's just the thing from my childhood. Fortunately, I left that one behind. Right, let's see. Okay, all these ties to be cut. Here on the sand, great tastes, blah blah. Right, gambling with time. As he reached the canyon's lip, the quick night of the central desert fell upon him. He was left with the parched glissando of moonglow to light his way towards the Tanza rift. He felt his heartbeat quicken with all of the fears which his wealth of memories provided. He sensed that he might be going down into Huani Na, as Fremen fears labelled the greatest storms, the Earth's death still. But whatever came, it would be visionless. Every step left farther behind him the spice-induced Diala. Sorry, is that Diana? Sorry. It's my handwriting there in this case. Where are you, number 10? Diana, yes, sorry, that's an N. Just fix that. My N looked a bit like a W there. Every step left farther behind the spice-induced Diana, that spreading awareness of his intuitive creative nature with its unfolding to the motionless chain of causality. For every 100 steps he took now, there must be at least one step aside, beyond words, into communion with his newly grasped internal reality. One way or another, Father, I'm coming to you. Well, what have we got here? Glissando is a great word. I love it. Glissando in music is kind of where you go, you like a slide on a bass. Boom. From the French glisser is to glide from one pitch to another, basically. So things like guitar slide, boom, like that. Going from one octave down, that sort of thing. That's why I like my bass has got 24 frets on it, which means I've got 3 octaves on any one given string. So if I start at the 24th fret, I can go all the way down to an open E, which is nice. So that's what a glissando is. I love that little bit of writing. It had he was left with the parched glissando of moonglow to light his way toward the Tanzeruft. The parched glide, if you like, of moonglow. It's very onomatopoeic, isn't it? Whatever. Possibly not, actually, but I just love the sound of it. The parched glissando of moonglow. Sounds like a great name for a character, doesn't it? I am glissando of moonglow. All hail me. Sorry, I'm being silly. Okay, so that's glissando. Tanzeruft we've had. Hawaiian and Hawaii. We've had Hawaii before from Hawaiian. Is word for highway. Now, in this case, can mean that's it or the. So it's the highway, I think. Dhyana is Sanskrit, meaning contemplation, reflection, meditation, a journey of the mind, that kind of thing. It comes from the root dhya, which means to think, meditate, contemplate. So where do we have that? The dhyana. Every step left further behind him, the spice-induced dhyana, the spice-induced contemplation, meditation, journey of the mind is what that means. Dishdasha we've had before. It's another great word. It is an Arabic word. It's a robe worn by Arabic men and is long sleeves and goes down to your ankles. Dishdasha. It's a great word. I wonder, can you look dashing in a dishdasha? Is that a thing? Would people in a dishdasha be dashing? I wonder. Yeah. Where would that be? I dare say it's probably not. I was thinking where the word dashing comes from. My little head's bouncing around all over the place at the minute. I've been thinking about sort of all sorts of Flash Gordon kind of clones and things like that recently. I put on the Dash Decent. I was looking at him earlier on today. And Captain Clap. Now, there were birds invisible in the rocks around him, making themselves known by small sounds. Fremen-wise, he listened for their echoes to guide his way where he could not see. Often as he passed crannies, he marked the green of eyes, creatures crouched and hiding because they knew a storm approached. Now, I thought that was odd. It doesn't. Humans are animals. We know why everybody has blue eyes on Arrakis, because of the saturation of the blood by the spice melange. gets it permanent. That the addiction of balance changes everything. Why would it be any different than the animals that you see on Dune? All of the animals, I imagine, would have some kind of. But here we have a bunch of animals with green eyes. And green within Arrakis is often kind of a color that represents life within death, if you see what I mean, that kind of idea. And death within life, that cycle. But just maybe wonder why. I just written here, shouldn't their eyes be blue? So the only thing that I could think of was that these animals are transplanted and have been transplanted recently and haven't been on Arrakis long enough for their eyes to change color. I don't know. He emerged from the gorge onto the desert. Living sound moved and breathed beneath him, telling of deep actions and latent fumaroles. He looked back and up to the moon lava caps on Jacurutu's butts. Let me just check that. That doesn't sound great. He looked back and up to the moon, touched lava caps on Jacurutu's butts. Yeah, that's fine. The whole structure was metamorphic, mostly pressure formed. Arrakis still had something to say of it in its own future. He planted his thumper to call a worm, and when it began beating against the sand, took his position to watch and listen. Unconsciously, his right hand went to the Atreides hawk ring concealed in a knotted fold of his dish dasher. Gurney had found it, but he had left it. Gurney had found it, but had left it. What had he thought, seeing Paul's ring? That's a very interesting thing, that he's given it back to Paul. To Leto. And it's probably a sign of Gurney's loyalty to the Atreides there. So the right hand is the symbol of agency in this book, in these books, and there's Atreides hawk ring is the sign of, I suppose, his ducal signet, his right to rule, the symbol of that. So unconsciously, his right hand went to the Atreides hawk ring concealed in the knotted fold. Leto's thoughts here. Father, expect me soon. The worm came from the south. It angled in to avoid the rocks, not as large as a worm as he'd hoped, but that could not be remedied. He gauged its passage, planting his hooks, and went up the scaled side with a quick scrambling as it swept over the thumper in a swishing dust spray. The worm turned easily under the pressure of his hooks. The wind of its passage began to whip his robe. He bent his gaze on the southern stars, dim through dust, and pointed the worm that way. Right into the storm. Wormrider on the storm, yes. I've got some doors here. Just sort of some music next to me here I've been listening to. Morrison Hotel, that's what I was having to listen to. Oh, sorry. Riders in the storm. Right into the storm. As first moon rose, Leto gauged the storm height and put off his estimate of its arrival. Not before daylight. It was spreading out, gathering more energy for a great leap. There'd be plenty of work for the ecological transformation teams. It was as though the planet fought them with a conscious fury out here, the fury increasing as the transformation took in more land. I'll read that again. I didn't like that there. There'll be plenty of work for the ecological transformation teams. It was as though the planet fought them with a conscious fury out here, the fury increasing as the transformation took in more land. All night he pressed the worm southward, sensing the reserves of its energy and the movements transmitted through his feet. Occasionally he let the beast fall off to the west, which it was forever trying to do, moved by the invisible boundaries of its territory or by a deep-seated awareness of the coming storm. Worms buried themselves to escape the sandblast winds, but this one would not sink beneath the desert while maker hooks held any of its rings open. Pardon me. At midnight, the worm was showing many signs of exhaustion. He moved back along its great ridges and worked the flail, allowing it to slow down, but continuing to drive it southward. We were talking about the flail a wee while back, folks. We ended up having a wee look at that. Oh, getting back now. Oh no, Littles is guarding the door. Pardon me. Pardon me. Lava caps on Jacurutu's butts. Yeah. Lava caps on Jacurutu's butts. Yeah, mine too. Was that 13? Lava caps on, yes. Am I mispronouncing that word? I wonder, is it butties? That's a good. I thought it was butts. Boots. Hang on. Oh, I've got no sound on this. Buttes. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Not butts. Buttes. Apologies, Cynthia. That's a Northern Irishism probably there. Yes, indeed. Butts is buttes. Jack looked back and up to the moon lava caps on Jacurutu's boots. Buttes. The whole structure was metamorphic. Yeah, thank you. That's me misreading it. Oh dear. Now, let's see, where do we get to? Father expected soon. Over the page a bit. Yeah, the flail. Sorry, I got distracted by doggies barking, wasn't it? Was what we were wondering why the flail, and it is actually a pharaonic symbol, a symbol of the pharaohs. So we're getting a lot of that actually, I think, with Leto the second here. Continuing to drive it southward. Okay, so the storm arrived just after daybreak. First, there was the beady, stretched out immobility of the desert dawn pressing dunes one into another. Next, the advancing dust caused him to seal his face flaps. In the thickening dust, the desert became a dun picture without lines. Pardon me. Then sand needles began cutting his cheeks, stinging his lids. He felt the coarse grit on his tongue and knew the moment of decision had come. So, should he risk the old stories by immobilizing the almost exhausted worm? He took only a heartbeat to discard this choice. Worked his way back to the worm's tail, slacked off his hooks, barely. Right, I'll read that again. Sorry. He took only a heartbeat to discard this choice. Worked his way back to the worm's tail, slacked off his hooks. Barely moving now, the worm began to burrow, but the excesses of the creature's. Oh, I've got a mistake here, folks. Hang on. I've got a howler. Let me see. Noob 20. Sorry, over the page. Right, this is what I've got written here. The worm began to burrow, but the excesses of the creature's heart transfer system still churned up a cyclone. So that's a mistake. It should be heat transfer system. But the excesses of the creature's heat transfer system, my copy says heart. Heat transfer system still churned up a cyclone oven behind him in the quickening storm. Fremen children learned the danger of this position near the worm's tail with their earliest stories. Pardon me. Worms were oxygen factories. Fire burned wildly in their passage, fed by the lavish exhalations from the chemical adaptations to friction within them. So, worms create oxygen, as we know, I suppose. Some people have, I think, is it Mark Rose, one of the science fiction academics, he's a bit bothered with the worms farting oxygen. I don't at all. Things fart all sorts of things, don't they? All sorts of gases or waste products. And the kind of the internalized, the kind of heat transfer system that part of the internal factory, if you like, of the worm would kind of remind you of a dragon a little bit, wouldn't it? There's Julian Thompson saying, "Hi Doc, hi everybody." Hi Julian, how are you doing, sir? Thank you very much for joining us. And Sandy said, "Yes, my text has heat transfer system, as it should." Why would you be transferring hearts? Doesn't make any sense at all. I've got to get some more fluids, folks. Give us a wee second, and I'll be right back with you. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yes, indeed. No, Holly, behave. Oh, I popped out and I got stalked back by the doggy there. Noodles is being good. Holly, not so much, I think. I got them out a good walk just before we came online, too. Don't look. Okay. Now, let's see. Yes, indeed. So another little worm fact here. Worms are oxygen factories. Fire burn wildly in their passage, fed by their lavish, exhaltations from the chemical adaptations to friction within them. Pardon me. So exhaltation, chemical and friction. Sand began to whip around his feet. Leto loosed his hooks and leaped wide to avoid the furnace at the tail. Everything depended now on getting beneath the sand where the worm had loosened it. Grabbing the static compaction tool in his left hand, he burrowed into a Dune's slip face, knowing the worm was too tired to turn back and swallow him in its great white orange mouth. Oh, somebody's let Holly out. She's barking away. Hollylicious. Sorry, I shouldn't have. She's out there. Basically, I always forget the microphone's there. Apologies, folks. As he burrowed with his left hand, his right hand worked the still tent from his frame kit and he readied it for inflation. It was all done in less than a minute. He had the tent into a hard-walled sand pocket on the lee face of a dune. He inflated the tent and crawled into it. Before setting the sphincter, he reached out with the compaction tool, reversed its action. The slip face came sliding down over the tent. Only a few sand grains entered as he sealed the opening. Now he had to work even more quickly. No sand snorkel would reach up there to keep him supplied with breathing air. This was a great storm. The kind few survived. It would cover this place with tons of sand. Only the tender bubble of the Stills tent with its compacted outer shell would protect him. So, this is again, it's a recurring motif that Frank has here. This will be a type of rebirth here. Often with the still tents, it's the sphincters. And you'll see this in books like something very, yeah, we have a bunch of these actually within the Dune series, but you'll also see them in like Frank's the launching of the Fenian ram in The Dragon Under the Sea, Under Pressure, 21st Century sub, Frank Herbert's first novel. You have this whole idea of this rebirth, the birthing canal, all of this kind of thing that he runs with quite a lot, actually. And we see here, once again, this is going to be Leto is entering the Earth, if you like. He's going into Arrakis in his tent through his he's going in through the sphincter, and he'll re-emerge through the sphincter. It's a kind of I don't know, almost a catabasis rebirth kind of thing. Though he's not exactly going into hell. But he's going into the Earth here, isn't he? Into the sand. Leto stretched flat on his back, folded his hands over his breast, and sent himself into a dormancy trance. Sorry, I'll read that again. Leto stretched flat on his back, folded his hands over his breast, and sent himself into a dormancy trance where his lungs would move only once an hour. In this, he committed himself to the unknown. The storm would pass, and if it did not expose his fragile pocket, he might emerge. Or he might enter the Madinat as-Salam, the abode of peace. Whatever happened, he knew he had to break the threads, one by one, leaving him at last only the golden path. It was that, or he could not return to the caliphate of his father's heirs. No more would he live the lie of that despoty, that terrible caliphate, chanting to the demiurge of his father. No more would he keep silent when a priest mouthed offensive nonsense. His crysknife will dissolve demons. That should be an example of the offensive nonsense. No more. Now, with this commitment, Leto's awareness slipped into the web of timeless Tao. I've just written underneath this, there's transformations and metamorphoses, if you like. Madinat al-Salam is the round city of Baghdad. It's the House of Wisdom. Oh, sorry, it's not the House of Wisdom. I was just writing down here, the House of Wisdom is located there, which is a famous library. Sorry, Madinat al-Salam is the round city of Baghdad. It's the original core of Baghdad, built by the Abbasid Caliph al-Mansur in between 762 and 766 CE. Its official name was the City of Peace. Ladies. So we get it here as, where are we? The abode of peace. The Madinat al-Salam, the abode of peace. Desposinite we've had before, by the way, is a Greek word. Desposinoi is the plural of desposinos, and it means belonging to the Lord. And in Christianity is a term that is a reference to the a genetic family, if you like, of Jesus Christ. Relatives of Jesus Christ would be the desposinai. In Christianity, demiurge. Oh goodness! Well, we're going to get on to that a fair bit, I imagine. I didn't want to go nuts with it just here, folks, because we're going to be looking at a fair amount of this stuff, I think, as we move down into God Emperor. The demiurge, from the Greek, so demos, amongst many other things, means people, and the word ergos, which means working. So you stick the two of them together, and you've got a working person. And demiurgos in Greek means a craftsman, basically, someone who works. Via the Latin and English, we get the demiurge. Excuse me. And in Platonic philosophy, this is the creator of the world. You'll find this discussed in Plato's Timaeus. Also in Gnosticism, this is the creator God who's distinct from and opposed to a supreme being. Yeah. And we're sort of heading towards that with Leto II, some ideas of that. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks, here. Yes, heat transfer. The sandworm, Julian Thompson saying, the sandworm, being an oxygen factory and an ecological force, go beyond the average animal. They adapt ecosystem to suit themselves, at least until human intervention. Yeah, and as you say, as an ecological force, the point is that they're responsible in some ways for the atmosphere on the planet that makes it habitable for humans. Mm. Bojax says, I have grasping the static compaction tool. Right, hang on. Let's just have a look. Grasping. Grabbing, I've got. What did I say? That's my mistake. Bojack, thank you very much. It is grasping, and I've written grabbing. Grasping. Oops. I don't know. Sometimes I'm a bit like Ash in Evil Dead, an Army of Darkness. Grasping. There we go. There we are. Thank you very much. That's that fixed. That was me. Well done, Bojack. Chai said, Medina has shalom. Yes. Hebrew Medina is a state or company entity created by law, related to the root. Oh, I gotta get new glasses. DOM, meaning judge and defend ideas, related to D, and then a root meaning repose. Shalom equals peace. Yeah, where did we get there from? The city of peace, wasn't it? It's the city, the abode of peace here. You have it as a state. Is a state or a company entity created by law, related to the root, meaning judge and defend ideas. Okay, let's get that done. I got space. Well, all right. Oh, got them on the next page. Haha. I like it when I do that. Thank you, chat. I've been reading all sorts of things today. I've been working on the harem problem. Still not. I'm going to have to put my own kind of premises aside, I think. But at the same time, I am being a bit tenacious with it, and I haven't quite found what I'm after. But I've kind of found things that kind of make sense to me. With the term harem, in particular relating to Horus, Kuhu, and things like that. But yeah, I've been trying to get it to match up with Khufu Cheops, because I did once upon a time, but I can't find my evidence. But anyway, I've been having an amazing amount of fun looking at all sorts of stuff today, working the problem into the Assyrian Empire, and looking at Ashurbanipal, etc. I was reading a wee bit about his library today. Quite interesting is that Assyriology is a much bigger subject than you would think. Covers a good amount of time. But yeah, or not are. Thanking you. Yeah, did we get to the end? Yeah, that was our last line. His Christmas will dissolve. He's no more. He's not going to put up with this anymore. And we get there's a firm set of mind, if you like, as we go into this tent, and then what will emerge, I suppose, is what we're going to see next. So a few again things moving faster now. I think gathering pace with the storm. Chapter 48 is our next chapter. That would be the last chapter in the original Dune series, if you see what I mean. But some of the last chapter of Dune's enormous, isn't it? But next time, folks, we're going to have another 2 chapters for you, because the next one's just a page and a half. That's no bother. 48 and 49 isn't much. Let's see. Oh, goodness. Right, well, it's a normal chapter length, I suppose. But there's no bother getting that done with chapter 48 because it's so short. So we'll have chapters 48 and 49 for the next time. 50 and 51. Yeah, we're going to be doubling up a lot. Yeah, we're going to be doubling up a lot of chapters, folks. So we are going to move into it pretty quick, And as I'm going to try and bring a few extras soon. and start getting some other things done with the station as well. But we're going to try and get a bit more Dune content for you as well, without kind of neglecting the book club, etc. But there you go. Oh, but yes, indeed. What time? How are we doing? That wasn't bad actually for two very short chapters. That's been about an hour and a half. Um, I said moving the action along, moving the intrigue along. Alliance is being firmly drawn. I suppose Ali is gone, um, and I suppose even maybe do we take a moment to actually think of how tragic a thing that is, and it's not just for Duncan, I suppose, who's seeing it here, but for Jessica, for Paul, for Leto and Ganima. It's a tragedy for the whole family, really, isn't it? With our poor Alia. And I said, I can't. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just been going ahead one chapter at a time because I'm trying to get a bunch of other stuff read. So I'm trying to remember if how much is she completely gone or not. That's what's intriguing me at the minute. Is there a chance that she gets? I cannot remember. I think there is a little glimpse of her returns. I think. But yeah, the tragedy of Ali is fully unfolded here. I mean, we now have a character who was once a fantastic character that I totally rooted for in every way. Was young Alia. We've seen her being completely subsumed here and destroyed by the grandfather that she killed as a little child. And it all lines up nicely with our our Atreides House of Atreides stuff, or Pelopids and all of that. But there we go, folks. Well, listen, I'll tell you what, I will wrap up then for tonight. It's a nice little short couple of chapters. I will see you again on Thursday for chapters 48 and 49 of Dune, Children of Dune. And I'm putting together some stuff, and I'm going to maybe try and fit in an extra Tuesday episode at some point to cover the Moapo of Leto Atreides, all of that stuff. So whenever we hit that in the book, I don't want it to dump it all in the club, but we'll actually do a wee separate episode where we can throw all of that information in, and it can almost act as a bit of a primer for the book, I think. So that should be fun. There's Bojack saying, take care, everyone. Thank you very much, Bojack. And Cynthia saying, thanks, Doc. And all. Yes, indeed, everybody, take care of yourselves. I'm going to wrap up tonight. Just I'm a bit tired myself. So weather here is atrocious at the minute. Not getting much sleep. It's very, very muggy at night. But yes, indeed, everybody. Thank you as always for your contributions, for keeping me right when I make little silly mistakes, for the banter and the good crack, as they say in this country. Look after yourselves. Be safe. Be lucky. And we'll see you on Thursday at 10 o'clock GMT +1 for 2 more chapters of Children of Dune. Thanks very much, everybody. All the very best. Take care and good night. Bye bye.